It wasn't always like this. It was only 6 years ago when you could go in and not have to beg someone to let you spend your hard-earned money on a Rolex. The showcases were filled with nearly every configuration for every model, from the Datejust to GMTs and even some Daytonas. And the kicker, you were able to negotiate off the retail prices like a car deal.
Alright, so what happened? What changed? And why did I have to spend so much money to get my hands on the cheapest watch that Rolex sells? Let's get into it while we review what's quickly become the poster child for this era of watch collecting, the Tiffany Blue Oyster Perpetual 36. Give the video a quick like, hit that subscribe button, and let's get right into it.
When Rolex dropped the colorful Oyster Perpetual lineup in 2020, nobody expected this madness. It was supposed to be the fun, accessible, entry-level Rolex, a simple time-only piece priced at around $5,000 to $6,000, but then everything changed. As the world was recovering from COVID and the rise of crypto, meme coins, NFTs, low interest rates, and rising inflation, it seemed as if money was flying around freely and everyone was looking for a place to make a quick buck. It wasn't long before watches weren't being bought to wear, but as appreciating assets. The combination of this, along with supply constraints from the lack of production during the shutdown, led to the luxury watch industry going into overdrive as demand rose to unprecedented levels. In the past, buying a Rolex meant owning a great watch. Now, it meant owning a piece of the market. People who were never into watches started hoarding them like stocks. Dealers were flipping them overnight for double, sometimes triple the price. And suddenly, watches like the Tiffany Blue Oyster Perpetual weren't just collectibles, they were investments. With all this happening in the background, it was actually Patek Philippe who sent the Tiffany Blue Oyster Perpetual into another stratosphere. In 2021, they announced that their most popular model, the 5711 Nautilus, would be discontinued. While we were still recovering from the news of the discontinuation, in December 2021, Patek dropped a bombshell with the news of a 170-piece limited edition final farewell for the 5711. It featured a Tiffany & Co. double-stamped dial in the most famous color in the world, Tiffany Blue. When the very first one hit the auction block at Phillips, it sold for $6.5 million. Overnight, the hype for Tiffany Blue anything went absolutely wild. This wasn't just a color anymore, it was a status symbol, the thing to have. And while the Tiffany 5711 was unattainable for 99.9% of collectors, they turned to the next best thing. Enter the Tiffany Blue Rolex Oyster Perpetual. While it had already been out for 2 years now, its value skyrocketed overnight. Prices jumped from a few thousand over retail to absolutely ludicrous numbers, fetching nearly $35,000 at the peak of the market, a 600% markup from retail pricing. Naturally, Rolex ADs were safeguarding the most hype pieces for their VIP clients, but somehow, after all the calls, the visits, and the chasing, I finally got the text I was waiting for and got my hands on my very own Tiffany Blue Oyster Perpetual 36. We'll get into exactly how I landed this a bit later, but a little history lesson is really needed to understand where the Oyster Perpetual sits in Rolex's lineup. The name of this watch is arguably the most historically significant to anything Rolex makes, and it goes back nearly a century. Rolex runs a masterclass of branding and names every little feature it comes out with, similar to Apple right now. It's not a high-resolution screen, it's a retina display. So in the 1920s, when Rolex released the world's first waterproof watch, it wasn't just Rolex on the dial, it was Rolex Oyster, to proudly display their new innovation and build a brand identity behind it. 6 years later, they followed suit, launching a self-winding rotor attached to the back of their movement, allowing the owner to never have to wind the watch ever again if they wear it every day. Rolex named this feature Perpetual, and in the 1930s, the world's first Oyster Perpetual was born. However, it wasn't until 2014 that we started seeing something that resembled this current generation. At that time, Rolex released a 26, 31, 34, and 36mm Oyster Perpetual, featuring a few relatively muted but interesting colors for the brand. In 2020, we got a revamp in new case sizes and an assortment of bright, vivid colors featuring coral red, yellow, green, and turquoise, but still the same two words displayed on the dial, calling back to nearly 100 years worth of history.
Okay, let's get into the actual watch, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual. No complication, no date, just a simple time-only watch done the Rolex way. I actually have quite a few time-only watches in the collection, with this one, the Nomos Tangente, and a vintage Cartier coming to the channel real soon.
Most men see the 36mm and immediately shy away, and while that's a topic for a whole nother video, just know that the OP is very dial heavy. The 36mm OP has a dial diameter of 30mm, which is actually the same size as a GMT or a Submariner. While those have rotating bezels that add to the size, the OP is primarily dial, which makes it wear a lot larger than it seems. My wrist measures 7 inches for context, and while the OP does work, I can't help but feel as if I'm strapping on a giant plate to my wrist because of how much dial there is. The watch is constructed with 904L stainless steel, or as Rolex brands it, Oyster Steel, which is one of the hardest alloys of steel and is typically reserved for industries when you're handling toxic gases and liquids. It only provides marginal benefits to other types of steel, but is very expensive to machine. So, most brands stick with other alloys. Rolex, being Rolex and never being able to settle with anything but the best, exclusively uses 904L for its watches. The OP features a mostly brushed finishing with polished edges and a polished dome bezel surrounding the dial. I wear my watches pretty hard and treat them as extensions of my wrist, as I'm sure you guys can tell seeing all these scuffs and scratches, but the brushed surfaces do a better job of hiding them than the polished center links on my Datejust. The Oyster bracelet is as good as it gets, with solid links, a secure clasp, and fit and finish rivaling the best. The clasp features an imprinted Rolex logo rather than the protruding one you see on most other Rolex models, and also features an easy link to give you about half a centimeter more space to use on warmer days. Moving on to the star of the show, the Tiffany Blue dial. Rolex went with an ultra smooth brass dial as the base before applying 6 layers of lacquer and finishing it off with gloss black inscriptions to provide the perfect contrast. In direct sunlight, it's a rich, saturated blue, but shifts to more of an ice blue in darker environments. It just pops on the wrist in ways that photos and videos can't do it justice. The applied white gold Rolex crown, along with the white gold beveled indices, reflect light beautifully to give the dial a subtle shimmer as your wrist turns. The indices are filled with Rolex's chromolite lume, emitting a soft blue glow after being exposed to sunlight. The blocky beveled hours and minutes hand provide great readability, while the needle thin seconds hand provide a refined elegance to balance out the dial.
I think it's important to take a step back and realize that this is Rolex's entry-level model, and it just goes to show how much detail, care, and engineering goes into anything that has a Rolex logo on it.
Without getting too technical, inside you're getting the Rolex caliber 3230, which is also the movement used for the no-date Submariner, Explorer, and the Air King. Believe it or not, Rolex didn't actually make their own movements for most of their history. That was done by Agler, a Swiss manufacturer that had an exclusive deal with them since the early 1900s. It was basically an unofficial in-house setup, but in 2004, Rolex made it official and finally bought them out. While it's far from the most exciting or best finished movements out there, it's an absolute workhorse. Rolex's innovation is shown in its branded parts with names such as Parachrome, Chronergy, Paraflex, and Siloxy, but those are all just fancy ways of saying that these movements are made to take a beating and are engineered to perfection. The 70-hour power reserve and accuracy are proofs of just that. You may look at this watch and think it's hard to style with the colorful dial, but it goes surprisingly well with most outfits. I typically wear neutrals as is, so it adds a nice pop of color to an otherwise minimal outfit. I'm wearing mine here with raw denim and a linen shirt from Misc and shoes from today's video sponsor, KOIO. KOIO has been featured organically on the channel before, which I'll link below, so it was an easy yes when they approached us to be featured in a video. I don't take on sponsorships from a brand unless I 100% believe in them and their products and think they will benefit you. While a shoe brand may seem counterintuitive in a watch video, the way KOIO runs actually draws more parallels to Rolex in more ways than one. They sent over their Capri, which is a clean minimalist leather sneaker and is a shoe that they're most known for, along with their newest release, the Monza, which is a retro GAT style sneaker done the KOIO way. The craftsmanship on these is the first parallel. Like Rolex making all their watches in Switzerland, every single aspect of KOIO is made in Italy, even down to the laces and packaging. The Italians have a history of leathercraft that dates back thousands of years, similar to how the Swiss excel in horology. KOIO works with decades-old Italian suppliers for each of their components, who are all the best of the best at what they do. The shoes are handmade in Florence with leather from northern Italy and the soles from western Italy, and pass through a total of 42 different people from start to finish. Using only premium calfskin leather for all their shoes, the leather is not only super soft and supple, but durable enough to last you for years to come. The Capris here are a classic, minimal, white leather sneaker that never goes out of style and can literally be worn with anything from shorts and a t-shirt to a blazer and slacks. The Monzas are a bit more fashion forward, but the off-white leather and cream soles give this a nice, laid-back, vintage, effortless look that really elevates any outfit. These work really well with some baggier jeans and even sweats. Unlike their competitors, KOIO sells directly to consumer, allowing them to come in at nearly half the price of their competitors who rely on traditional retailers to distribute their product. They've extended out a $25 code for you to use, which I will link below. At this price, you're getting some sneakers that will not only last you ages, but patina beautifully over time. Thanks again to KOIO for supporting the channel. Before I get into how I was able to land mine at an AD, let's chat about the big question on hand. Is this watch worth the price? I think it's a phenomenal $6,000 watch, but leaves me scratching my head thinking about others buying it at 2 to 3 times that. At retail pricing, you're getting all the perks of the higher end Rolexes at an entry level price point. You're not getting anything super fancy, but you are getting a solid watch from the world's most famous watch brand. It's a unique watch that does well from standing out from a sea of Datejust that just about everyone has on nowadays, but at current market prices, unless you're chasing the hype, it's just not worth 5 figures. So, how did I land mine at retail? I honestly don't have a secret formula or anything. Let's be real, this whole game of watch allocations can and is very crazy, but with things being the way they are, and ADs practically handing you a few $1,000s of equity when they sell you something, it's important to them that they go into the right hands. For me, it just came down to having a good relationship with my AD, having a decent purchase history, and a ton of love. This Rolex is AD only, so thankfully they don't try to sell you on jewelry or other watch brands every chance they get, which I really appreciate. It took years of building a relationship way before the shortages and exhibition only stuff started, and I had family members who wanted a few pieces and were open to letting me put it under my account. I bought a mint green Datejust 41, a black mother of pearl Datejust 31, a white mother of pearl Datejust 31 for my wife for our wedding, and then came this Oyster Perpetual 36. It is unfortunate that you can't just walk in and buy what you want. Gone are the days when you could buy these things to celebrate a special occasion or to mark an achievement, which I really hate, but until things go back to normal, this is the new normal in the watch world. So yeah, I'm beyond grateful that I was offered this watch, and my best advice would be just be a nice person to the ADs, buy things you actually want, and hope for the best.
So what do you think? Is the Oyster Perpetual overrated or is it worth the money? This watch did kick off the trend of colorful dial watches, so is there another one that you prefer? Let's chat in the comments below.
Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Take care.